We're back again with Declan Shalvey, artist for DC, Image and Marvel, though now we can add writer as Dec has been authoring a short in Marvel's Civil War II Choosing Sides. And that's what we're going to look at on this episode, on this page from issue 4. You're watching Strip Panel Naked, I'm Hass, and I'm going to show you some of the cool stuff lurking in the pages of some of the best comics. So the story so far has been Nick Fury attempting to download some information, and that ends with a fight against Black Widow while waiting for the transfer to happen. And we end up with this page here. So Dec, as this is the first thing you've written, and you've primarily worked as an artist first, how did you approach the scripting of this?
All of the the Fury Choosing Side story were all written script, all properly written.
Okay.
Did it all out, except for this one. There's a certain story going through all of the short stories as one, and there was only really one important bit of information from this story, is that Fury needs to download information. Other stories, he's doing different adventures and kind of narrating it as it goes, and I didn't want to get too heavy on narration in general. I wanted to use it in a story here, a story there, along with dialogue, but I wanted to break it up a little. So I thought, what if I just make it silent? And I love silent comics anyway, and I had to, I was like, want to try it out. So I asked the editor was cool with it. So then, before I started writing it, I realized when I write, I'm kind of already half thinking of layouts as I'm writing. So then when I do work on the layouts, I already have the images in my mind, so it's actually a lot more of a streamlined process. But since there wasn't going to be any dialogue in this, I thought, can I not write this like in script? Can I just do the layouts and hand those in? Because it's not like there's any dialogue for you to read. If you can read in the layouts, then it's clear.
Yeah.
So in a way, it became a nice kind of challenge to try and communicate a story in silent panels, but also try and basically write in drawings, So it was actually, in a way, it was actually the hardest one to write, because I had to kind of tweak things and move things around and figure out what worked, and also because the download bar, I'm like, how do I communicate that silently?
And that loading bar is actually a really clever part of the paging design, and you can see how the red is instantly impactful. How did you come about that design and that decision?
It was actually Jordie. I knew I was going to have a loading bar, but Jordie suggested me putting the loading bar in the gutters, which was great because it meant that they only take up a tiny, what I was saying about real estate on the page, tiny amount of real estate. I just made my panel borders like a little bit thicker, and I was able to use the gutters to tell the story while telling story within the actual panels. As regards that page, all the other panels are pretty much widescreen, if I recall. So they're, big moments, big, clear imagery. When I got to this is basically the climax of the story.
So why did you decide on this pushing in effect for the fight?
The more they fight, the less important it is. It's not really important that they're fighting. It's important just that Fury is holding out for that loading bar to get to 100. And I wanted the tension to kind of tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. The closer and closer the loading bar got to 100%. So I decided to pull back in the first one, show the both of them fighting, and then just move in, and just kind of become more abstracted, because again, it becomes less important necessarily. It's not about showing a very clear fight. It's about building tension. So I tried to abstract it more as it went, and then got to that last panel, and then the next page everything totally changes and switches up.
And you talked there about the moving in on the fight, and we can see how each row of panels adds a new panel and makes each image smaller. Was that a conscious decision to build up one by one each time?
Well, it's intentional, but only after kind of playing around with it for a bit, That started out as a 4-panel page. It was going to be 4 panels of them punching each other, yeah. And look cool. The challenge with the Choosing Side story was that there's 6 pages. I have a lot to kind of get in there, so I need to be as economical as possible. So I kind of took the piss already with issue 3, where I had a silent double-page spread for one moment, which again, I really wanted to do. I really wanted to try it. I'm surprised they let me get away with it. And I tried it and it worked, so I felt that I can't do that. It really would be a bad form if I did it again. If I deliberately was slowing things down. And also, like I said, the rest of this story is very open and clear. So in order to build the tension, I realized as I was working on it that the loading bar is the most important thing, but still, I didn't think 4 panels of them punching each other, that it really raised tension, because it was paced so 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the beat of the panels. I needed it to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I needed to kind of build that up. So I think as I was working on it, I thought, well, what if I halved the second tier? And I realized that what if I just made the 2 panels up closer? And then I liked the idea of halving it again, basically making it 3 and then halving it again and having 4. So it kind of morphed into what it was.
And the striking part of this image is colour. So from both a writer's and artist's perspective, how much consideration are you giving to colour going in?
Well, because it was silent, I felt that colour was my ally in this one. And also because I had Jordie Bellaire, we work in studio together, so she doesn't want me art directing her, you know.
Yeah.
She doesn't want anybody art directing her, so I don't. But for this story specifically, I think maybe because I knew it might be a harder sell, and also because the test was if it read silently, if the editor could read it in layouts, then it would be fine. So I figured I needed to have colour in there to help with clarity. Because if the layouts weren't clear, then he would know what was happening, and then I wouldn't be able to do a silent story.
Yeah.
So I did it basically, I did a rough colour version of the whole story myself. And I gave it to Jordie, and this, you know, and again, it wasn't like, do this. It was just, this is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
And now pretty much did what I was asking for, but she did two different things. In my version, the gutters were the same color as Fury's costume, and the loading bar was blue, because I wanted it to read clearly that it was a loading bar. And most loading bars are kind of blue, you know, because I work on a Mac, so that's what I always see. So what Jordie wanted to do was she wanted to change the gutters to black and have the loading bar red. And I'm a sucker for black and red. I think they're also right. She thought it worked better with Black Widow as well. And also because of his teleportation device being blue, which was established in the first issue, might be confusing as regarding if it's the loading bar for the teleporter or for uploading this information. So yeah, that was the change. And also, I mean, it's pretty interesting because especially in this page where the lights are out, the black gutters definitely help. If the gutters were white, that would not read as a dark room, because the whole feeling is that the lights have gone out and you can't really see. You know, when your eyes are adjusting, you can see but you can't see, so that's why it's all very heavily shadowed and very hard to read, except for the red. I really know that red against the black and dark colors is really, really poppy, you know.
But if you look at the choice of reds as well, Black Widow's hair and logo is really quite muted and desaturated in comparison to the red loading bars, which are really quite bright and striking.
But it is a credit to Jordie Bellaire. If we had done it the way that I was perceiving of, I don't think that would have been as readable, you know. I mean, it certainly would have been clear, and where I was worried because of the black gutters, I thought maybe the fight would get too abstracted, but I am deliberately abstracting it by the end, so it worked. And what I think what stops it from becoming a mess, I think, are those clear horizontal lines of the loading bar. Though loading bars weren't there, I think the pages would fall apart.
It's clear that those bars are the thing to focus on in this page, and everything else is just kind of in the background.
Absolutely, and the panel gutters changed to white then, so it's even more so. I mean, probably not noticeably when you just turn the page, you don't think, but already if the gutters are white, then all of a sudden it does switch your eye. It's like your eye is adjusting to the light, you know.
And another thing I found really interesting was how the fight just descends into these two icons.
I think I was just playing around with it, and I realized, you know, like, so it got closer and closer. And well, what was important to me was that Fury was getting his ass kicked.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have any superpowers, and Black Widow is, you know, she's an absolute veteran, so he would get his ass handed to him by Black Widow, I feel. Once I realized we're kind of zooming in, I think I just had the Fury logo, but I think I actually deliberately composed the Black Widow icon and the Fury icon. It was basically a tangent, a follow-through tangent, basically, like between the bottom of Black Widow's logo and Fury's.
Yep.
Like you can read one line going directly across. I would, if I saw somebody else doing that, I'd be like, that is bullshit. Do not do that. Because I think it's called traveling.
Yeah.
You know, if you draw one panel where somebody's hand goes out of the panel, and then the next one, a different person's hand goes into the panel, you're going to read that as the same hand, you know, and that it trips up the storytelling. But I very deliberately did it here because I kind of see them both as, you know, both super spies, and when it comes down to it, they both have very strong iconography with those symbols. And while we're getting closer, it's getting more vicious. All I really needed to see, you know. You don't need to see any more than that. You already know that they're fighting. But again, it's like I was saying with communication, you know. They're butting up against each other, and then last two panels, literally the symbols are both up against each other. So I think you're communicating an idea.
And it's great that you get to build pages like this as both the writer and artist, as I imagine it gives you a different approach and freedom that you might not get otherwise. How has writing for this book changed your approach to writing and drawing comics?
I think it certainly reinforced my feeling about economy. and trying to tell a story in the clearest way possible and letting an artist do the storytelling that they wanted to do, you know. It was interesting writing the Fury story. Not that all of a sudden I'm brilliant now and I'm a brilliant writer or whatnot, I've just done one thing, but I tried to make it more difficult for me as a writer than I did as an artist. As an artist, I made it a little easy for myself. He's in a desert in the first one. The third one, he's in snow. The fourth one, he's in a dark base. From drawing, having to draw it. It wasn't the toughest story to draw because I made myself a little easy in that regard. Yeah. But I deliberately made it hard for me to write because I tried to create something original about each one and yet have it work as a cohesive story. But what I did do was, as I was writing, make sure that there was something visually interesting about each one. I think especially working with Warren and how his scripts are very economical, but they leave enough room for me to kind of add my own sensibilities. Mm-hmm. I mean, I wrote the scripts with the same thing in mind. You know, I made sure I didn't overwrite it. I wrote full proper scripts because for me I use it as an exercise in learning how to write properly. So now I'm writing a couple of other things for other people at the moment, and I can just do it exactly the same way I did Fury because I feel like I know now how to put enough information down that you're telling the artist what's going on, but giving enough room for them to invest as much as they want.
And talking of Warren Ellis, that leads nicely into next week's Strip Panel Naked, where we'll have the final part of our chat with Declan Shalvey, looking at a page from Injection. So where we've covered the widescreen layout and storytelling in Moonlight, and now a page of action in Choosing Sides, with Injection we'll be talking through the scary ordeal of illustrating a page of exposition and dialogue. That'll be coming next week in Strip Panel Naked, so we'll see you back then for the final part of the Creators Edition with Declan Shalvey. Thanks for watching. If you're enjoying Strip Panel Naked, please check out our Patreon, where for your support and donations, you'll get extra content, including additional pieces from Declan Shalvey's talk with us, extra articles, and tons of exclusive page annotations and breakdowns from each video. As it stands, there are over 100 of those for you to check out now. If you want more annotations and comic talk, follow me on Twitter at HassanOE. And on this episode was of course edited by the awesome UC Quiche. Follow him on Twitter and tell him what a great job he did. And see you next time.